Hi there, and welcome to Housing Wire's Demo Day on Demand. I'm Allison LaForgia, Managing Editor of Housing Wire's Content Studio, and I'm glad you're joining us. Demo Day is where we spotlight the most innovative technology companies in housing and mortgage, giving you, our audience, a front row seat to real product demos from the teams building the tools that move our industry forward. In this session, we're featuring Vesta, a company that's solving real-world challenges with smart, scalable solutions. Stick around after the demo, and we'll dive into a short conversation where I'll ask the questions that'll help you connect the dots between their tech and your business needs. In this Vesta demo, Mike will be taking us through Vesta LOS. Vesta is the next generation mortgage LOS that reduces lenders' operational costs by inverting control, guiding users through the loan. With data-driven tasks, validations, and native automations, Vesta eliminates manual work, enabling faster closing times, higher loan quality, and greater efficiency. Mike will show us how the industry's most tech-forward lenders are preparing for the future of mortgage origination. Mike, take us through the demo.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Allison. So today we're going to walk you through a little bit of Vesta. Of course, there's an entire LOS to kind of explore here, so people should always feel free to reach out to see more. But in particular, we're going to take a focus on how we at Vesta think about workflow, making that task-based, and how that drives efficiencies for lenders. So we'll start with kind of a dashboard. We'll take you through some of the core concepts of objectives and tasks and how Vesta really chops up the loan and guides the user through what they need to do next. And then we'll actually go into a queue, do a bunch of those tasks, see some of the experiences that we at Vesta have built around those, and how automation can make those even more efficient. So to start, we'll just explain some of the basic concepts. We're looking at a dashboard here at Vesta. This is a pretty basic, we've got loans and application, and we've got a bunch of pipeline views that we've pulled into this dashboard. And then we've also got a bunch of work pipeline views as well. So if I want to take a look at my 60 loans and application, for example, I can always drill down, take a look at my actual loan pipeline, and see something that I think probably everyone who's used an LOS is going to be pretty used to, a list of a bunch of loans, a bunch of columns and filters that you can set up. However, in Vesta, the loan is actually not the atomic unit of work. So you can keep track of your loans as a manager, always a really important thing to do. But we're actually going to have the system automatically compute a bunch of work that has to be done on each loan and let you manage the work directly outside of the loan. So for example, I might have a processing management dashboard, and I can see here that I've got a whole bunch of objectives assigned to different people. Mike has 46 objectives to do, Graham has 57 objectives to do, etc. If I go and drill down into that, I'm actually going to get a work pipeline, which instead of showing me loans, is going to show me actual pieces of work that people have assigned to them. So for example, Graham in his 56 objectives needs to actually, collect documents from the borrower on loan 785, or he needs to pre-approve and disclose a whole bunch of loans, or he needs to review some borrower docs on loan 713. And so you can actually see all of the work that your people are assigned to do and manage that both as a manager and, of course, ICs can take a look at this view as well and see only their own work. You actually can even do that work directly from the pipeline. So if I go and I take, my own work, for example, as Mike, and I say, hey, I need to go ahead and pre-approve and disclose loan 677, I can actually open that objective up, which is going to be a group of tasks, and go and execute those tasks right away, right from this loan pipeline or work pipeline. So I can hit start, and it'll just pull me into the loan. It'll pull me to the checklist and the things that I need to start doing. I can go ahead and just kind of start working on the loan. So for example, if the first thing I need to do is pull credit, I can really quickly go ahead and set this up, run my credit pull, etc. And so really the core idea of Vesta is the system will figure out what work needs to get done, and then it'll kind of guide the user to do that work. They can take a look at a prioritized list from the work pipeline and kind of go from there. So I've pulled credit, maybe I finished that, and I'm going to go ahead and say I've done that item, and it's going to take me to the next place I need to do, for example, to browse loan products. So that's kind of the core idea of an objective. Lots of individual contributors work out of a work pipeline, but we've actually taken things even one step further, and we've got this idea of a queue, which I'm going to show you now. So if I go over here to the left-hand side and I say I want to enter my work queue, the idea behind the queue is that it's actually going to be extremely prescriptive with what a user needs to do. So it's going to say you're going to do exactly one thing at a time, and we're going to give you the one highest priority objective in the entire ecosystem that is most relevant to your skill set and that is most urgent to do. And as a user, we actually have customers who say, my ops people log in every day, and all they have to look at is this queue. It keeps them focused, it makes them more efficient, and it allows you as the executive to kind of decide exactly what it is you want your people working on at any given point in time. So right now, my prioritization function says, hey, Mike, the most important thing you can do with the skills that are configured in the system for you and with all of the loans in the pipeline is review the borrower docs, the docs that Andy provided on loan 790. So we'll go ahead and we'll start doing that. This is a place where there's a lot of opportunity for automation and AI to make things much more efficient. So of course, we've got the docs. We're going to do a pretty basic review here. We're going to say, hey, is this an acceptable pay stub? Is this not an acceptable pay stub? If we say yes, we'll notice that we've actually been able to auto-extract a whole bunch of the data. We are using kind of, OpenAI or Google Gemini under the hood to do this. And so what this actually allows you to do is say, we've got a whole bunch of different documents that different document types that we can pull in, and the LLM will kind of figure out what to do. So here we'll pretend this pay stub is not eligible because we wanted a Tesla pay stub, and this says Testa. So this doesn't seem like the right employer. And we actually can then have the system say, hey, so as a user, do you want to re-request this original document, reopen that condition? And we'll say, yes, we'll reopen the upload pay stubs task for the borrower. And we'll say, you previously provided a Testa pay stub. Please provide 30 days of pay stubs for Tesla. We can submit that, and it'll immediately take us to the next task in our objective, which is to review this W-2. Maybe at this point, we're like, maybe the Testa docs are fine. It's really fast. You can see for the user to go ahead and say yes. This time, the AI actually managed to get all of the data off the doc, and we'll go ahead and submit that, and it'll take us again to the next doc. And so you can see how quickly a user is able to kind of review these docs, confirm that everything is right, reject a document if it's not the right document, and then accept the document and populate the fields aided by this AI extraction. In this case, for example, the AI missed the purchase contingency date, probably because it says something like 21 days after the after the contract date, and doesn't actually say, what that date is. So we'll go ahead and we'll just put in 21 days after the contract date as the contingency here. And so we just have to fill out the one field. We can check the rest of the fields. We'll update all of that data in the right place on the loan, and we'll continue through. And so really accelerating, a processor's ability or an ops person's ability to go ahead and review these docs. So I'll skim through the rest of these now, get through these 6 docs in just a couple minutes. And we can extract, as you can see, all kinds of different docs here. And this is natively built into the LOS. You can see it's really nicely integrated into the workflow. And that's actually a big thing we've seen when it comes to document intelligence adoption, is really making sure it's integrated well in the workflow. So now that we've completed that, you can see that objective actually automatically completed. We did our 6 tasks. We've completed 2 objectives today now. And it's going to say, hey, here's the next thing to do, Mike. Now you've got to go review DTI on a totally different loan on 676. But this really allows you to facilitate, your users working on always the next most important thing. So now we'll say, hey, we're going to get a checklist to review a credit report and some liabilities. So we're going to take a look at the liabilities. We're going to check for credit report characteristics. When Vesta pulls credit, we'll automatically pull in things like the inquiries and let you quick filter them. We'll pull in the late payments. So making it really simple and easy to kind of do that task. And then the next task is actually going to be to calculate the income. And so in order to calculate income, we'll go ahead and we'll try out our income calculator. So just another way in which we've built workflow and UX directly into the LOS to facilitate the completion of these operational tasks. We'll do this income calculator, and we've got a couple incomes on this loan to calculate. On the employment side, we've got a pretty complicated calculator. You'll remember we actually used document intelligence to extract all that data from the documents. That data is going to get pre-filled into the calculator, so the user has access to the documents if they want, but they don't have to necessarily fill it out all over again. We're using W-2s, and we've got, a couple W-2s with box 5 extracted. And then we'll just look this over, make sure this looks right. And then the system will go ahead and give us some ideas for the income calculation. Now, as an underwriter, I might always want to be able to override this and say, hey, I actually want to use the year-to-date amount for some reason. And I can, be forced to leave some additional comments explaining why I picked something that the system didn't suggest to me. But underwriters do love that. And I can say, hey, my variable pay, it looks like I've got about $7,000 a month, but there's a big decrease between 24 and 23 average of variable pay, and we've got year to date. And so we're going to go ahead and ask for an additional condition. Maybe we're going to say from the borrower, we're going to ask them for not just their 24 and 23 W-2s, we'll also get the 22 W-2 just because, we're a little bit nervous here. And so we can seamlessly kind of add an additional condition from this income calculator, take a look at how that trending analysis works out, finish the calculation, and then quickly apply, calculate the Social Security income as well. We'll see here that we don't have a tax return, so we'll just take the conventional guideline and gross up 15% of it by 25%. And we'll wrap that up. We'll apply the calculated income, and we'll say we've finished that item in the task. Since we've changed the income so much, the DTI moved a lot, it's going to prompt us to rerun AUS. Vesta is always going to be dynamically, in real time, recalculating everything on the loan, figuring out where that creates discrepancies, where that creates problems, and making sure that the data is consistent and that you have everything you need at all times to make sure that loan's going to get closed quickly and efficiently, and you won't run into something later. So that's going to create a validation. It's actually going to stop me from being able to submit this task. And so when I go and submit that task, it's going to say, hey, you need to, you saw that warning, which said, hey, someone's going to have to go and look at this before you can move that loan forward to run AUS. Finally, people often ask, I'm sitting here in a queue, I've got a bunch of work. What if I can't do this? What if in this case, it's asking me to get pay stubs from the borrower and I can't talk to the borrower? I'm just a ops person, someone misconfigured something. We, of course, have a whole bunch of workflow around escalating to your manager, around blocking for a certain period of time that can be configured as well. So this is really just a quick tour into how we think about doing work here at Vesta. You've got these task experiences that are really designed to facilitate that efficiency. And then you've got both a work pipeline and a queue to help your operations people decide what they've got to work on next. There's tons of magic and tons of configuration that goes into how all this workflow gets spun up automatically, how it gets assigned to various people, and how all of this kind of gets stitched together to complete a loan. But it's, I think, a very different way of taking on originating a mortgage, and our customers have seen a lot of efficiency and success doing it. So hopefully this was a good overview to how we think about workflow here at Vesta. And if people want to learn more, they should always feel free to reach out or ask some questions.
Mike, thank you so much for taking us through Vesta LOS and showing us what it's bringing to the table and how it's eliminating manual work, enabling greater efficiency. Let's dig a little bit more into the platform and jump into some questions. So the first question that I have for you is, where are lenders on Vesta getting the biggest lift in efficiency from automation?
Yeah, I will say there are probably two things. Actually, the biggest one, especially at lenders that are more mid-size, does tend to be that because you can use task-based workflow and write a bunch of rules to enforce quality earlier in the process, a lot of the efficiency actually comes from underwriting and downstream efficiency, where those people are seeing the loan fewer times. They have to do less work on each loan. A lot of it has been automatically conditioned, which helps, but even more importantly, it means a bunch of those conditions are fulfilled before they see the loan the first time. And so the more you can kind of shift some of the thinking into the machine and accordingly shift it up front, we're seeing a lot of good, underwriting efficiency that our customers are telling us about because they've been able to basically do fewer touches on each loan. The other big advantage, of course, is you can probably see here automatically figuring out what work to be done needs to be done as a big advantage, and then automatically doing some of that work, whether that be things like the document AI, or we have similarly like automated service orders, which we didn't get to show here. That also can drive meaningful efficiency as well.
And let's talk a little bit about AI, since it's such a hot topic right now in the industry. How is Vesta leveraging AI today, and how do you see that evolving over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, today I think the doc AI is really the big focus for us. It's kind of the obvious place in the mortgage industry where I think a lot of people see an opportunity to say, we can take something that can structure this unstructured data, and there's so much unstructured data coming in the form of docs. Over time, I think lenders can probably also imagine, once you've built kind of this really nice experience that allows more entry-level employees to just do exactly what the system is telling them, you can absolutely overlay an AI agent on top of it and tell it to do that work. Some people might have noticed, eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed in the demo, I had like a user called AI Agent Test, which is also had like 8 objectives assigned to it or something like that. So I have played with, you make a persona for some AI agent, you give that login actually to, we use a AI coding agent here at Vesta, and I was like, we'll just let the coding agent try doing some tasks. And it actually did, it wasn't tuned for it. It wasn't outstanding, but I certainly think that there'll be an opportunity to have an agent just sitting in a queue that looks like this, churning out tasks as well. And it's kind of like, getting an entry-level employee who can do some of the easier stuff, like reviewing the docs or placing service orders.
Sounds like a really interesting potential future capability.
I hope so. I think there's a lot of promise there. And I think that the most important thing is really you need the system to be making the hard decisions, like What do you work on? That's got to be made deterministically. What is the credit decision? Of course, has to be made deterministically. But once you've actually figured out what work needs to get done, anything that, for example, you'd be comfortable offshoring, I think you probably should be comfortable, sending to an AI agent as well. And I think it's just much easier to send something to an AI agent than offshore, especially for some of these lenders who, don't have the scale to set up a whole offshore operation.
Absolutely. And to what extent can Vesta be customized? What freedom does a lender have to develop their own bespoke needs, and how does that get done?
Yeah, so everything that we saw here, for example, in the workflow, that is all customizable. We have a point of view, which is the lender has to have exactly the process that they want, the way that it's routed, who's responsible for doing it, the way the words show up on the screen and tell people what to do in order for this to really get adopted. Because, while everyone is kind of originating to a similar set of guidelines, and that means we can give them something out of the box from a rules standpoint, people still have unique operations. They have a unique way that they think about, dividing the process and especially the job families and what each family is responsible for. And so we allow complete customization of kind of what are the tasks, what are the objectives, what are the roles, who gets assigned to those things, and then what do those things actually guide the user through. And we've got a huge kind of like no code configuration platform that actually supports that. And so that no code configuration platform supports things like versioning and version management, pipeline protection when you roll out new rules, collaboration between people. So if I've got like 3 admins and they're all working on a different piece of the process, they can actually work on different drafts of the configuration and merge those things together. And so we've invested very heavily in making sure that we have easy to use workflow tooling that doesn't require somebody to know how to code, so that every lender can really tune this to and then continue to iterate on it. Like one of the beauties that we've seen with our customers is they can set up a process, they can learn a bunch about where the bottlenecks are, and then they can improve the way that they actually tool their process as opposed to having to like hire around that problem.
And it sounds like the lift to continue to have different iterations of it because it's a no code environment sounds very light and user
That's
friendly.
That's exactly right. It's very much a kind of just point and click setup. And the other nice thing about that is it does allow people to bring people with more mortgage expertise into the actual configuration of the operational process, as opposed to today where you kind of have to find someone who knows how to code and knows the mortgage process. And those people, as we all know, are pretty rare and pretty expensive.
Pretty rare and pretty expensive, exactly. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking us through Vesta LOS. To our audience, for more information about Vesta, click the link below.